Hello, everybody. My name is Deb Coviello, and I'd like to welcome you to the Drop-In CEO Live Talk Media, where I have a special guest today, an amazing topic. I would like to introduce you to Jay Hodge, who is the president and an organizational transformation advisor, as well as host of the 1,000-Year Legacy podcast, and recently a guest on my show, the Drop-In CEO podcast. Jay, I can't wait to have this conversation with both of our audiences, but welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much, Deb. It is so much fun to talk about culture because in the world we live in of operations, so many times people forget that it all boils down to culture.
And thank you for that. And yes, this week's theme is rooted in culture and trust, but more specifically about if we don't start from a place of having a good culture, the impact can be negative on the bottom line on our business. So it's very, very critical. But, I just want to go a little bit deeper. And if you haven't listened to the podcast, please listen. But we go into a deep conversation about culture, and you even go as far as talking about what a fine dining experience might look like and what good is. And so I would love for you maybe just to set the stage and paint a picture of what you would say a good culture looks like, because I think we can learn so much more from what good looks like versus painting a picture of bad.
Well, it kind of goes back to when you boil it down is most organizations have what's called a mission, vision, and values. They've got it posted everywhere. Every couple of years, they revamp it a little. But to be just blunt, those are words. Mission, vision, and values are words. Our culture is our behavior. It's action. It's how we live. When people walk into our organizations, they don't experience our mission, vision, and values. They experience our culture. And our culture is a manifestation of our mission, vision, and values. Actually, it's either something that reinforces our mission, vision, and values, or it negates our mission, vision, and values. Because I can have mission, vision, and values literally posted on every wall of a hospital, of every wall of a manufacturing facility, a service, every government agency out there. Just cover the walls with mission, vision, and values. People walk in and they say, oh, this is what they're really about. They sit down and talk to the nurse for the first time, or the registration person, or the ordering clerk at the counter, and they realize that that's a bunch of junk. It's just a bunch of words. And because your culture is how you interact and how your customers perceive you based upon the interaction that they have with you.
That's amazing insight. And I'm reflecting now on a current client that I'm working with. And yes, they do have a really good mission on their wall. But rather than me just working with them to get them through the business challenge they have, they're actually taking the time to ask the people, do the mission, vision, quality policy resonate, or what would it be in your own words, and bring that forward. And I'm saying, oh my, the culture, the beliefs, the behavior of the individual I'm interfacing with, oh my. This is something that I can see and I feel, and I know it transcends the organization. So I'm not just providing a service for this organization. I'm helping them to bring forward what is already, I believe, a great culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when we think about good, and we think about, my next question here, when we refer to a business that's on this journey and they come to you and I say, I want to fix X, Y, or Z, and you're not sure what the culture is. And as you prepare them for the change, what are some of the questions you ask them to help them to reflect on what they are and the work that they need to do going forward? Because it may look good on the surface, but you spend a lot of time in some deep discovery work to make sure we're on the right path.
To be honest, one of the first questions that I ask them is, who are you?
Wow.
I mean, literally, who are you? I don't care if it's a hospital, if it's a small manufacturing facility, a large manufacturing multinational. Who are you? How do you define yourself? And when they define themselves, I ask a simple question: would your customers define you the same way? And if there's a difference, that tells me that the culture is not where it needs to be. It goes back to the mission, vision, and values. Every organization I work with, I always ask when I meet with the leaders, the very first meeting is I ask, as an organization, what is your objective? And, there could be a CEO in the room, there could be a chief medical officer, there could be a president, there could be all these different people. And sometimes what I get is different people will give me different answers. Because if you think about it, a chief medical officer does have somewhat of a different objective than the CEO, which may have a different objective for the director of radiology. And I point out that that's actually the first issue we have to address. It goes back to, I don't know if I've ever shared this example with you. On a football team, you have an offense and a defense. I always ask this question: what's the objective of the offense on a football team? It's to score. That's what everybody says.
Right.
I mean, literally everybody says it's to score. What's the objective of the defense? It's to stop the other team from scoring, right? Okay. So if that's the case, let's say I'm on the offense for the Miami Dolphins. Terrible thing to admit in public, but yes, I am a fan of the Miami Dolphins. And you're on the defense for the Denver Broncos. I'm running towards you with the ball. I get up to you, trip over my own feet, drop the ball in front of you. As a defender, what most people say is that they're going to pick up the ball and run the other way and score. And I say, no, that's actually not the case, because you defined your objective as stopping me from scoring. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick up the ball, help me up, hand me the ball, and then viciously tackle me. Everyone just kind of looks at me like, why did we hire you? You're an idiot, right? And I said, the reason that doesn't make sense and then it doesn't work like that is because in reality, the objective of the offense, the defense, the special teams, the coaching staff, the line crew, the water boy, the fans is to win the game. The purpose of the defense is very different than the purpose of the offense, which is very different than the purpose of the coaching staff, which is different than the purpose of the line crew. But the objective is to win the game. It's really no different for an organization. When I go into a hospital and I ask that question, I could be sitting in a room with 20 different departments, and I get 20 different answers because they think that their objectives are different. It's not. Your objective is to win. And in a hospital, you define winning as when the patient chooses you over everybody else that they could choose, because in a hospital, normally within 20 miles of any given hospital, there's probably 4 or 5 other hospitals. So when we define winning as our patients choosing us, or we define winning as an auto manufacturer as our customers choosing our auto versus someone else, because when you go to buy an auto, there's probably 4 or 5 dealers within 3 or 4 miles of the place you bought your car. We define winning when our customers, our patients choose us. And part of getting people to understand really what culture is getting them first to understand that they all have the same objective: winning. But the question is, how do you define winning? Ultimately, it boils down to getting your customers, your patients to choose you. That's really how you define winning, because if everybody chose you over everybody else, that's really actually the ultimate win. That's how we define winning. And getting people to understand that is so critical in an organization, because if we all think that our objective is different than the purpose of the department right next to me, we're never going to be on the same team. We may be on the same team, have the same badge, have the same name on it, but we're never actually on the same team. And it goes back to the fact that if everybody isn't pointed in the same direction, and this is kind of where I step on people's toes when I start talking about a culture. And I do this to everybody, and it stings a lot, but it gets the point across. When I sit in a room with, whether it's 20 people in healthcare or 200, and I ask a simple question: what do our patients value? I get answers like quality healthcare, great service. Those are nice answers, really soft, safe, beautiful answers, right? And I throw them back in their face and say, that's not an acceptable answer. What makes up quality healthcare? What makes up great service? And what's really not terrifying to me, it's kind of enlightening to everybody in the room. After about 5 or 6 answers of people saying, well, they want timely service, they want to be heard, they want compassion, they want all these nice, easy answers, the room goes silent. And it really, seriously, doesn't matter whether I'm in a room with 200 people or 10, the room goes silent. And I take out my boots and I step on their toes pretty hard. And the reason I do that is because if we can't define why our customers should choose us, why should they choose us? So I give examples like quiet at night, a second pillow, a clean blanket, a clean bathroom, comfortable accommodations for my family members, good communication with my physician, good communication with my nurse, a meal that arrives on time, a phone that I can reach, a TV that I can see, a TV that I can hear, a remote that works, a bed alarm that works, someone that answers the call light. And the list goes on and on and on. And it ranges anywhere between 70 and 85, depending upon the customer I'm working with, the patient or hospital I'm working with. But it's a realization that as a culture, if we've never taken the time to list out what our customers value, how can we ever really give them what they value? And the kicker here is that if I've got 10 people in the room and I ask a question, if all of you made a list, how many of your lists would be the same? And the answer is 0. It is absolutely 0. So if I've got 500 people working in an organization and they all made the list of what they believe our patients value, I'm going to have 500 different lists. In the Marine Corps, we have what's called mission success, based upon what's called mission alignment, organizational alignment. And that means we're all pointed in the same direction, going on the same path. We all have the same exact objective. It's defined. If I've got 500 people in an organization all working off of 500 different lists, I don't have anything similar to organizational alignment, which means we're not all pointing in the same direction. But here is the nice part. If I combine those 500 lists and we all start working off the same list, guess what I've just created? Organizational alignment. But it took working together and understanding that our perspectives are all different, and understanding that if we don't truly know what the patients expect from us, what our customers expect from us, culturally, we'll never have the culture that we need to have to build to be successful, or as successful as we could be. Let's just say that.
So Jay, just thank you. I really cannot contribute much more to that. That is exactly what I articulate is something that you can have the most talented people, the great reputation, but unless we're all aligned to a purpose, mission, vision, or have the same marching orders or the same list, you're going to continue to be off track. No amount of money you can throw at a consultant to try to improve quality, service, satisfaction, et cetera, is going to fix it, or at least not sustainably, because you're going to go back to the misalignment that's going to take you off track. Amazing. And what is the impact when you help an organization align and move forward? What have you seen as the financial impact or maybe the legacy of that company?
Well, the financial impact and the cultural impact can actually be seen sometimes at different times.
Okay.
When you start to change a culture, it's a gradual thing because, to be very honest, you're going to get some resistance. You're going to find that there are people that are very happy with the current culture. They're comfortable in it. These are the people that I would refer to as non-team players, non-assets, simply because they're comfortable with mediocrity. They're comfortable with being average. And they don't want to be better than average, because when you work for an organization that's better than average, you're expected to perform in a better than average manner. And some people don't like that. Some people are very comfortable. So those people end up weeding themselves out. Some of them try to sabotage the process. You kind of go into it knowing that that's the case. It's okay. It's just part of the process. But the financial impact is actually fairly dramatic, fairly quickly, depending upon the process you're looking at. For example, a hospital that I work with, that I have worked with, they have what's called a tube system. A tube system runs throughout the entire hospital. It transfers tubes, blood samples, medications, all of that. I heard in the background that nurses were walking back and forth between floors and between departments, getting tubes because they didn't have enough tubes, or they didn't have enough tubes at their station. So I started digging into it, and what we came to find out is that no one had ever been trained on how to use the tube system effectively, because the tube system has logic. And every station in a hospital, you can establish a par level. So the system in the tube system is smart enough to know that this tube station should always have 5 empty tubes ready for use. what we found out is that no one had ever set the logic, no one had ever trained anybody, and no one had ever done a validation of the number of tubes that were in the system at any time. So what had been happening is people were running back and forth. We're not talking about EVS people or PCTs. We're talking about the nurses who are providing patient care. We're talking about people that are being paid a very, very nice salary for an amazing job that they do. I'm paying them to walk from this department to that department 5 to 6 times a day to get a tube, to
Very
send a
wasteful.
sample.
Yeah.
Very wasteful. So and it's not just the time that it took that nurse to do that. It's the time it took them to possibly make a phone call and say, hey, do you have any extra tubes? It's the time that it delayed the patient care. And this is part of a cultural thing that we're talking about, is that every opportunity, everything that I see that interrupts my ability to provide maximum value to the patient is probably not just this big. It probably looks more like a distorted octopus that goes out in about 20 different areas, and it has 20 different impacts. And from a cultural perspective, we spend so much of our time, because it's kind of like Hollywood. If you can find the big impact, the mountain that everybody sees and everybody goes, ooh, that's an amazing find. Let's all work on that big mountain of a problem. When they don't realize that from a cultural perspective, our culture is based upon 1 billion moleholes, fixing the moleholes. But we spend all of our time looking at this mountain, not realizing that we're stepping over 1 million moleholes every single day. And the mountain is actually made up of a bunch of moleholes. But we like to focus on that because it's visible and it's fancy, and everyone goes, ooh, look at that, we're fixing that.
So amazing insight. And I can't imagine, again, when you just ask the right questions and observe and look, and I know the work that you do, sometimes you can see all those molehills. And if you don't fix them, the ground is going to cave in. So it's important to fix the foundation, observe, ask the right questions. Amazing. I can only imagine the impact it does for people wanting to choose you over the other person, and there's the financial gains. So I want to start bringing this in a little bit, because you provide so much value, and I want people to learn more about your work and connect with you. But if somebody was not ready to start working with you or is thinking about it, but what could they do right now? I don't know, to uncover the molehills or start taking a look at their organization and ask the right questions. What can they do now? But also, how can they engage with you?
I think the easiest thing for anybody, and this isn't a promotion for me, the easiest thing for any leader to do is to sit down and answer 3 questions. Number 1, what is your objective as an organization? Number 2, who are your customers? Number 3, what do your customers value? What do they expect from you when they walk through your doors, call you, get on the internet, and place an order? Ask those 3 questions. Write those down, and then go to your leadership team, your VPs, directors, whoever. Ask them to answer the same 3 questions individually, and then sit in a room and review those questions together. They don't need me to figure this out. You are not on the same page.
Amazing.
Once you do that, once people do that, all of a sudden they realize that I'm the CEO, and I believe this is where we're going. But I found out talking with my VPs that I've got 2 VPs going in that direction, 1 VP going over here, one of them facing 180 degrees behind of us. And what's interesting about that is, if they're pointing in those directions, where do you think their directors are pointing? If they're not aligned with me, then do you think their directors or their direct reports are going to be aligned with them? And all of a sudden you realize that you've got 500 people literally pointing in 360 different degrees. You've got every degree covered. You do that activity and you realize that's the case, then call me, but don't call me before then.
So this is very powerful insight, so simple. And if you're a business leader that is just thinking, maybe I don't have the right culture, we're not all marching in the same direction, check out Jay's advice, but also connect with him, because if you're ready to at least have a conversation, I think Jay can provide you so much insight. How can people connect with you?
If they want to connect with me, they can go to our company website, www.theletterJHODGE, HODGEASSOC.com. Sorry, I never go to my own website, so I guess I have a hard time doing that. They can also just email me, jay.hodge at the letter JHODGEASSOC.com. They can go and listen through any of the large podcast media outlets to the 1,000-Year Legacy. They'll kind of understand a little more what I'm about. That's probably the easiest way to do it.
So, first of all, for those watching today and those watching on the replay, I sincerely thank you for joining us again. I also invite you to check out the Drop In CEO podcast, where I bring amazing leaders such as Jay, episode 125. You want to catch that, as well as others, to elevate your performance, but also to make you think a little bit differently. So, Jay, thank you for being an amazing guest. I wish you continued success and also leaving a legacy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you for all you do. You are truly making a difference, and your podcasts are awesome. I really do appreciate the insight you share in those.
Thank you.